I'm gonna tell you how I went from making $17,000 a year to $500,000. So buckle in. When I graduated university, I moved to South Korea to be an English teacher. I was making $17,000 a year, but they covered all of my housing and bills. Then I moved to Vietnam and I was an English teacher there as well, but I worked at multiple schools. I was making about $25,000 a year. Then I moved to Bulgaria, which is where I'm from, and I ended up staying for a very long time because I met my husband. For the next 5 years, I worked as a freelance English teacher, freelance copywriter, and freelance content marketer. I did a lot of things, but then I got really burned out from working all of these different jobs, so I decided to start applying to work at one company. I landed a job as a content marketer at a startup and they paid me $57,000 a year, which was great. The problem was that job sucked. So I continued applying and just a few months later, I landed something at $70,000 a year. However, after about 6 months, they laid off my entire team. It was fine though, because at this point, my husband and I knew we were going to move to the US. So I started applying for jobs in the US. I landed a role at a bank as a content designer and they were paying me $60 an hour, which was fabulous, but it was a contractor role, so I didn't get any benefits. While I was working that job, I continued applying at different jobs so I can get a full-time job with benefits. And I did. Just 1 month after starting that job, I also started creating content. And that entire year, I worked that full-time job and I did content creation full-time. And I started making really good money from content creation. And so this year, I continued working the full-time job and creating content. But ultimately, I decided to leave the full-time job because I was making so much more from content creation and I enjoyed it so much more. And this year, I'm going to make $500,000 from content creation. I think when I left my corporate job, a lot of people thought I was leaving this big corporate career behind. But in reality, I have always been a freelancer. I have always been an entrepreneur. I've worked in corporate for only 3-ish years, and it wasn't even my favorite thing to do.